702 and Cape Talk. Family Matters.
25 minutes before noon, Family Matters. We're focusing on alcoholism. I've got Janet Gourand with me here in the Cape Talk studio. And I'm going to be talking about Janet's journey, her relationship with sobriety and out of alcohol. Also, why it is that she's so passionate on a number of different initiatives that have various benefits, not just for you in terms of health, socially, for your career, your family life, but also at least one of them, which is run by World Without Wine, the Dry January campaign, and I think also wonderful fundraising effort there that will benefit many underprivileged folks in various parts of the townships here in Cape Town as well. Janet, I feel like I know you. We've only met physically twice before.
That's
correct. In Franschhoek, and then generously when you came to my book launch at the District 6 Museum. But I feel like I know you because I stalk you on Facebook.
Me too. I've had an intellectual crush on you a long time.
I have the same on you. And I think because I'm so ubiquitous on social media, people don't realize that I'm actually both a voyeur and an exhibitionist. So I stalk other people as much as I post my own thoughts as well. And your page on Facebook certainly is one of them. Before we talk about this Dry January initiative and World Without Wine, I thought perhaps what would be useful, Janet, is for us to get to know you a little bit, who you are, this French surname and wonderful, not typical Cape Town accent of yours, and why alcohol sobriety is such an important part of your purpose in terms of what you are living for at the moment.
Sure, thanks, Eusebius. So, my story. I started drinking at college when I was about 18 years old. I just loved the kind of buzz and the confidence that alcohol gave me. I mean, I'm quite old now, and I grew up in the sex, drugs, and rock and roll era, and it was great. But I would say over the years I developed into what we call a functioning alcoholic, and there are many, many of us around. I built a great career, I had a family, but the alcohol was always there. It was my best friend. My routine was, it doesn't sound too excessive, it was maybe a glass or two of wine at lunch. I would have a business lunch or a social lunch, and then I'd get home, open the bottle, glass of wine whilst cooking, another 1-2 with dinner, and then obviously it's rude to put a open bottle back in the fridge, so I have to have another glass while watching TV. And that happened over the years, quite insidious. And that was a quiet day. Obviously I went out and I partied and I socialised, and then it was much more. But I was very functioning in that I never had a day off work with a hangover, for example. I would go in and go to the bathroom and vomit if I had to, but I would not let myself have a day off work because somehow that would be admitting that I had a problem. And I had my wake-up call 10 years ago when I got breast cancer. It was quite serious. I had mastectomy, chemotherapy, radiation, and I had a lot of time on my hands during that difficult period. And that's when I started researching. And I was very brave. I researched the link between alcohol and cancer, and there is a strong link. The evidence is stacking up every day. In fact, I've just posted an article on my Facebook page which links alcohol with 7 different types of cancer. So, to my horror, I also discovered what the safe limits were. In England, there's a lot of publicity because in England, as in South Africa, the alcohol's been normalised. I mean, everybody drinks. But the Brits are trying their best, so they publish what they call safe limits. And by safe limits, they mean how much you can drink on a regular basis without impacting your health too much. So
I was quite surprised when I saw some of that data in the preparation material you sent me, because obviously the first thing one does, especially if you're a hypochondriac as I am, is to think, oh gosh, am I just a social drinker who wishes to go sober to get a six-pack, or do I actually potentially need to accept that I'm an alcoholic? And I had to look twice, because one of your descriptions of what is considered an acceptable healthy limit is 6 pints per week. That was, I think to myself, okay, 6 pints, that's actually quite a bit of alcohol. And I wonder if I have all of that on a Saturday afternoon, does that make it better? You start doing those calculations.
Yeah, it doesn't make it better. If you're wondering, it's because we do classify that as binge drinking.
Exactly.
And that's really bad for the
Exactly.
health, because it takes the liver a long time to recover from
Absolutely.
a binge. So, because I was a wine drinker, I was absolutely horrified to discover that the safe limit was 1.5 bottles of wine a week. And I was putting that away on an evening, no worries. So after the breast cancer, I tried to moderate. So for 10 years, I tried to moderate. I'd be okay for a couple of weeks, drinking within the safe limits. And then I'd go completely over the top and have a blackout. And I tried lots of different strategies to cut down. One of my strategies was, I said to my husband, that's it, no more alcohol in the house. We'll only drink when we go out. But then I made him go out every night. So poor guy was exhausted. So, and when I researched into blackouts, I found that they're caused by the brain becoming so soaked in alcohol that it can't actually make memories. It's not that you forget, but you can't make memories in the first place. And that really scared me. I thought, what am I doing to my brain here? So that's
The other point, Janet, of course, that you make so well to repeat as part of your public education is the really dangerous double-edged nature of being relaxed after a couple of glasses. That you feel it's a great, as we say, lubricant for conversation. It reduces anxiety levels and it starts small. I mean, I was just walking yesterday from the hotel I'm staying in, Sea Point, to go and fetch my Nando's. I was feeling a little bit anxious because I've got a history of anxiety. And I don't want to drink. I suppose having you come on the show today focused my mind, so I didn't have anything yesterday.
excellent. Well done.
But I might ordinarily, or I might have chosen to have a glass, because in my head I would have thought, instead of popping an anxiety tablet, or instead of taking a sleeping tablet that will help to comatose me temporarily, a glass will make me feel better. But you make the brutally obvious point that we don't internalize in how we behave, that no longer feeling that twitch in your neck or no longer feeling awkward socially doesn't mean that whatever's going on in your body or in your mind has been dealt with. You are just parking off the problem.
I think anxiety sometimes can be a warning sign. I mean,
Absolutely.
think about, I would say you guys more than us ladies, but there's something about anxiety that will stop people getting into arguments, into conflicts, into fights, because it's like a warning, and socially as well, you feel a bit anxious if you've not had a drink, but one can learn to overcome that. I would say it took me a year of sobriety before I would feel really comfortable at a social event. Sober small talk takes some getting used to. But
and for you, what was also interesting, because I think, and of course they've done amazing work, is Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh,
but
fantastic.
it doesn't necessarily work for everyone as well, right?
No, well, I went.
Yep.
And I tried, a few meetings. It just didn't quite gel for me. Maybe it was the meetings that I went to, but I found it very male-orientated. And the people there often, they've lost everything. They've lost their homes, they've lost their families. And I wasn't really in that league. I was probably on my way there, but I wasn't quite there. And I just couldn't kind of gel with them.
I'm chuckling because I know that you give workshops, and we will get to that as well. And I was very curious that a workshop can have a transformation effect on one. Because for you, what did work, and I want you to tell me why you think, upon reflection, it did, was a workshop in London.
Yeah.
Because we do have a pity Olympics in our head, don't we? Because I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I go to one of Janet's workshops, if she comes to Joburg, and all I want to do is just to go sober until, say, Easter, so I can go to Durban on the beach and for once take off my shirt, whether my motivation would compare to someone else who might be in the workshop. Can you talk to me about two things? Firstly, what the workshop did for you that you experienced, Janet. And then secondly, the different kinds of motivations that are necessarily personal and all equally acceptable. Because we sometimes think that this kind of conversation must only be for the person who's lost everything.
Okay. Just before I start, let me give you a little tip about taking the shirt off. Dieting. Everybody thinks about dieting in January. I discovered I'd always been on a diet. I mean, in my 20s, I lived on white wine and cigarettes, and it kind of carried on from there, always dieting. And then I discovered when I was ill and doing all this research that because alcohol is a poison, your body has to burn it off very quickly. It just wants to get rid of it. So when you're drinking and obviously eating stuff, your body thinks, okay, here's the booze, let's get rid of that. And by the time it's got rid of that, there's nothing left to then work on the food. So if you're on a diet for January the 1st and you're still drinking, just, be cognizant that it'll take a lot longer and it'll be a lot more difficult to lose those pounds. Okay, so the workshop in London. Yeah, I looked at AA here. I went to AA, wasn't getting anywhere. And then I looked at rehab and I thought, maybe not yet. I'm not quite there yet. So then I found this place in the UK, and it was just a one-day workshop, how to quit or moderate drinking. And I was due to go there on holiday anyway. That's where I'm from. So I signed up and I went there. And it sounds like a cliche, but it changed my life. And what happened was, I would say there was maybe a dozen of us in a room. I always remember because we were in this above a courtyard. It's a hot day in England, which is rare. Everybody was out in the courtyard, sitting around, getting absolutely trashed. we were sitting there talking. But what it gave me three things, really. It gave me a safe space to reflect on why I was drinking so much, because I have no excuse. I'm enormously privileged, very lucky, a very happy person, and why on earth, was I doing this to myself? So it gave me a space. We all tell our stories, and that's where AA have it right, because they do their shares. And in our workshops, we also do shares. And it was for me the first time I'd ever talked to a group of strangers about my drinking and acknowledged that it was a problem for me. It also gives
you... Can I be nosy?
Sure.
You don't mind, do you?
No.
We know each other, after all, sort of, literally. Out of interest, what personal truth did you arrive at? Given how privileged you were, educated, you've done all this interesting stuff, what truth about alcohol's place in your otherwise privileged life did you come to in that space?
That I was kind of weak and brainwashed by, the advertising agencies, obviously, telling us, we need alcohol to have a glamorous, exciting life. The people that I mixed with, I think if you are a bit of a drinker, you tend to choose, other people that like a drink. And my lovely French sober husband out there is my second husband. My first husband enjoyed a drink as much as me. So I would say, we had 15 years together, happy years really, but we were always, knocking it back. We would have dinner parties that would go until 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was the culture. But when I met Vincent, he... made it clear that wasn't his thing. He wasn't used to Brits kind of drinking till they fell down. So he brought a bit of moderation into my life, and I can't say I did it for him, because it doesn't work that way. You have to do it for yourself.
Absolutely.
But that's when I started my moderation journey and when I got sick. But going back to the workshop, space to reflect, a chance to meet other people in the same situation. That's why World Without Wine is so awesome, because now we've got a community. Everyone that's been to my workshops, they join the community. We're on WhatsApp. We were all out last night. There was about 15 of us around a big table in a restaurant round here.
Knocking back the water.
Mocktails. Really nice mocktails. So we're part of a community.
Okay.
And most importantly, the workshop that I attended in London, it gave me the tools and strategy that I needed, not only to stop drinking, but to lead an alcohol-free life and to navigate society, because that is a big deal.
So that is the gift of reigniting your own zest for life and purpose that you're trying to create with World Without Wine.
Exactly. And I'm doing an online course at the moment on recovery and wellness coaching, because I know I am an executive coach, so I know all about that. So I'm adding an extra skill set.
Yes.
But why it's called recovery and wellness is the recovery part is about getting people off their addiction, and the wellness is about finding their purpose, once
Absolutely.
you've found your purpose.
Now, I think, and I mean, this is obviously a long conversation. This is about forming habits, Janet, which can be very challenging. And I think you and I will, with your permission, we're going to have you on the show several times. So I think this is a journey that people need to walk. It's not just a once-off conversation where you have a moment of clarity. Life doesn't work in such a linear manner, sadly. So we'll have a couple of these shows, depending on your availability.
Yes.
But for now, if there's anyone who wants to call in, share your story, if you want to hear a bit more about what Janet does, perhaps you have already attended one of her workshops, or part of the community of World Without Wine, which, by the way, you can check out by going to worldwithoutwine.com. Feel free to give us a quick buzz. We do have 10 minutes left of the show. We'd love to hear from you. Janet speaks from experience. These are not just theoretical, learned insights that she has. And we'll give you as much advice as we can. And although we're wrapping up the show, we will make sure we will have Janet back. 011 883 0702 in Johannesburg, and in Cape Town 021 446 0567. The line's already going crazy, Janet.
Oh, really?
As I told you that they would. You are generous and compelling, and these issues are, of course, very important. Can we immediately start some of the practicalities? Let's just jump into some of the challenges, right? And I'm going to be behaving like a peanut gallery while we set up the call. So I'm going to tell you some of the things that people think. So number one, I'm on the plane yesterday, typical example. And I wasn't drinking, but I drank the night before. And I don't actually drink a lot, but I actually wouldn't mind not drinking at all. But I think about the potential costs, and then it becomes like a mountain in my head to try and go sober, even for your January challenge. And I'll give you two examples of two just casual fears I have, and then I stop thinking about it, and I go back to being a weekend drinker. The one is I think about my creativity. So yesterday I had dronkverdriet, right, which is an emotional hangover. But the cool thing about an emotional hangover, and I wondered as you were talking about being in your 20s, hanging out with people who drink, party until 3 in the morning, there is a plus side to that, right?
Absolutely.
If you are creative, and I think to myself, where will my dream dystopian novel about men on the down low come from if I don't write it with a bottle of wine in my hand? A sober 38-year-old can't possibly write that. So there's the fear that I will lose some of my creative zest. And then there's the social awkwardness, which is my second typical fear. When I've previously said, okay, I'm not going to drink for the next 3 weeks, and I go out, I become irritated with darn friends who should know better. Why are you not drinking? And I did this with one of my buddies the other day, in Braamfontein, without irony. He said, no, I'm not drinking this year. And I'm like, why are you not drinking? So what's your advice to people like me who are not necessarily alcoholics, clinically speaking? We desire to not drink for health, aesthetics, and other benefits. But in my case, there's a worry that some of my creativity is linked to having a good time, living the examined life. That's one worry. And the other worry is that it becomes a lust to say to Janet, please stop asking me why I'm not having a beer.
Yes, it's not at all easy coping when you're not drinking to be out, but it's something that you learn over time. Creativity-wise, I must just put a personal slant on that, in that I also like to think I'm quite creative, but since I've stopped drinking, my creativity has gone through the roof.
Oh, really?
Because, well, for one thing, I don't kind of nod off in front of TV every evening. Now I'm usually on my computer, I'm writing an article, or I'm doing something on the website, because I'm so passionate about the world without wine, and there's just so much material out there. And I do believe that sober is the new black, that there is a whole movement, a sobriety movement, that is going to come into play.
Yes.
I think, we used to think cigarettes were fine, I mean, for goodness sake, and now we realise.
That's so true.
And I think alcohol will go that way. So creativity, I don't think you need to worry about your creativity at all, UCBS. When it comes to socialising, well, you strike me as a bit of an extrovert. I can't imagine you needing many drinks to enjoy yourself out in the evening.
But that's the thing, though. And then we will, Tubby and Max and Fiona, we're going to come to you in the next second. But just a 30-second response for now. And we'll continue it in the next installment more fully. That's the thing. Many of us are genuine extroverts. Some of us perform extroversion, which is why so many of my friends in the creative industries, some of my closest friends who are comedians, for example, often are closet introverts.
Absolutely.
Who use a bit of drinking to facilitate the expectation that they should be gregarious.
Yeah, absolutely. I read this book recently called Quiet by an American lady. I can't remember her name, but that was so interesting. Apparently the populations split into about 50 introverts, 50 extroverts. But we're all put under a lot of pressure. I'm an introvert, as I realise now. The introverts are put under a lot of pressure to perform. You know, in the corporate life, we're always giving presentations, we're chairing meetings. When we're out, you know, we have to be fun. And a lot of us are fueling that extroversion with drink. But I would say to people like yourself, Eusebius, you strike me as someone that can moderate. So to use, you know, have a couple of beers to relax and to feel good, then that's absolutely fine. I'm so jealous of people that can moderate. I would still love to be able to have a drink of wine.
Okay, let's take a couple of calls. We've got Max. Thank you for your patience, Max. Go ahead.
Hi. My question is, I'm not sure if I'm an alcoholic because I can go without, I can moderate on occasion, but I always feel like I'm just one bad night away from a serious binge where I can go through like a bottle of vodka in a night. And I don't know if I'm at that stage where I need help or I can continue to moderate or quit. Like now, I've just left alcohol for like a month. So
Sure, that's a big and difficult and very important question from Max. We'll take just two quick ones. We only have 2 minutes. See, time flies when you have amazing guests. But we'll. Okay, I'm just going to make this promissory note and keep to it. And the producers, Darlene and Josie, will make sure I stick to it. That we'll bring Janet back within the next couple of weeks. Tubby, hello.
Hi, morning to everyone at the studio and morning to Janet.
Hi, Tubby.
Hi, I was just phoning in to thank Janet. I'm also one of the people that have attended one of her workshops in November and also signed up for the Dry January Challenge. It's very challenging at first when you decide that you want to stop or you want to moderate, especially, like you said, if you're an introvert, because it helps you to be out there. And, alcohol is that one thing that is socially acceptable.
Yes.
So, when I signed up for the challenge, I also had the same fears that you've just discussed. So with the workshop, I thought, okay, I'm going to struggle. But I made it. And then in January, I decided I'm actually going to sign up for the January challenge.
Fantastic.
And what has helped me through the whole process is the emails that you received, the daily emails, as well as just the support that you get from the group. So I think irrespective of your personality or your industry, like you said, with regards to creativity, when you're sober, you wake up still remembering, what was the last sentence that you wrote, So even if you don't go all the way out, even if you don't become, sober for the rest of your life, I think this is the opportunity that you can actually give yourself. Try it out for a month.
Absolutely. We've got only 1 minute left. Max's question is too big for 1 minute, but for what it's worth, just your gut response to him in terms of knowing whether he's got a problem or not, and then give us details about where people can get hold of you, Janet, and then in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll bring you back for part 2.
Okay, hi Max. I would say my advice to you was be aware. It sounds as if you are being aware of the amount that you're drinking. To keep a little diary, keep a notebook, write down what you're drinking. And actually, I think maybe you should sign up for our Dry January Challenge. People can sign up any time from now until the end of January. So I had someone this morning that said they're doing a Dry February because it's the shortest month. So sign up for the challenge, and then as Tubby was explaining, every day I send out an email and it's full of tips, tools, motivation about how to get you through that alcohol-free month. And by reading those emails, you'll be educating yourself. It's almost like coming on a workshop. You'll be learning all the stuff that we cover in the workshop.
Great stuff. So where can they do that?
Just go on to World Without Wine, and I've put a link to the Dry January Challenge and also to our next workshop on my homepage. So just a little click and you're there.
Janet, you've been great. Thank you so much for coming to the studio. We've run out of time. There's a longer conversation here about what constitutes alcoholism, what their journey involves, and I'm looking forward to having you back on the show very soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Eusebius.
In the last 24 hours,